Could you imagine a version of the Goku Black arc that didn't involve body swapping? A legitimate evil or corrupted Goku that made sense in the story? Well, at one point that actually felt like a pretty viable possibility. An evil Goku spawned entirely of human error, in one of the most logical story progressions for Trunks' future. Arguably one of the best stories told since Super Returned was the Goku Black arc of Dragon Ball Super. Although the ending and Trunks' send-off still infuriates me, this version we didn't get might not have been better, but it's interesting to know just where the story could have gone in a different direction. Alas, the version we did get actually takes a lot from Toyotaro's fan manga, Dragon Ball AF, which he'd done years prior, back from when he was known as Toyball. Many of the story beats return of certain old moves, such as the Mafuba or Evil Containment Wave, and even ushering in a Goku clone, are the same as that we see in Toyball's Dragon Ball AF. Not exactly the same though, obviously. However, with two versions of the Goku Black story already existing in the Super manga and the Super anime, and a draft version you could technically view as Dragon Ball AF, it leaves us to wonder how many other ways this story could have been told. So at the time, we knew that the story was going to take place in Trunks' future timeline, based on the fact we kind of guessed he was returning, thanks to an interview between Toriyama and Toyotaro announcing the fact that the next arc would feature somebody heavily linked to the word future. And that was an absolute belter of a head scratcher there, Toriyama. Thanks ever so much for putting that out there. We were confused about that for months. But anyway, that meant it was pretty clear that something had gone wrong in his timeline. And if we remember the way that Trunks' timeline was actually left off when we last saw him, destroying Imperfect Cell in his own timeline, everything was left in a fairly positive light. You know, other than the fact that Trunks had very little friends, family, and anybody to help and rely on. But nevertheless. However, the impending threat that he likely would have had to deal with next, which would have been Deborah, Babidi, and Boo, meant the strength that Trunks had when he defeated Cell wouldn't have actually been enough to topple those foes, especially given that his timeline is in the future of the present timeline that the main story is set in. Babidi and Deborah could have arrived literally the following year for Trunks, as it was a surprise that they hadn't actually already arrived at this point. Of course, we know the Super anime and the manga did actually cover these events differently from one another in little detail, but prior to this we actually had no idea if they'd even mention it at the time. So Trunks would be faced with these enemies, backed into a corner once more, and just about managed to get the win and prevent Boo's hatching. Don't ask me how. We just knew he was coming back, so obviously he'd managed to avert the crisis somehow in the future. It either didn't take place, or he managed to stop it from happening. But this lucky victory over Deborah and Babidi would have made Trunks painfully aware at how alone he is in this world. So, future Bulma being aware of this, and now not being forced to use the most limited of resources due to society's rebuilding after the victory over the androids, uses her knowledge of the Dragon Ball's energy from building her radars, and attempts to reverse engineer a set of pseudo Dragon Balls. While she knows the Dragon Balls were magic, she expects her knowledge of science and detecting their energy means she can attempt to replicate it, which is very Bulma. After getting so far into the development, it becomes time to test them out, but considering Bulma's confidence in her work, she expects them to work. They summon the pseudo-dragon, who's a flickering hologrammatic version of Shenron, and the sky goes black and they test their first wish out. So far so good. Bulma, having set out to make what she believes will be the ultimate set of Dragon Balls, claims her Dragon Balls won't be limited by the same thing Shenron was, meaning that they could attempt to resurrect people who have died multiple times and even of natural causes. So, who better to test the first wish out on than Goku himself? And why not ask Pseudo Shenron to make him stronger whilst you're at it? Seeing as Bulma's Pseudo Dragon Balls can do anything, you may as well give it a try. They make their wish to revive a stronger Goku, and the sky turns to a red hue, and the flickering intensifies. Suddenly the Dragon Balls fault and cut out. The dragon disappears and the sky stays black permanently. Maybe Trunks looks over to Bulma in concern, when a bolt of lightning would strike down and Goku would be stood there surrounded by flames. Sounds a little similar to the Goku Black arc's introduction at this point. We again didn't know that was going to happen at the time. But this wouldn't be the Goku that they were expecting. It would be a version of Goku that was corrupted by the pseudo Dragon Ball's mistake. With dark grey skin and a faded gi, it would be like a futuristic nightmare Goku, who they'd nickname Goku Black. This was where more of the Toriyama and Toyotaro interview would actually come into play, because they had mentioned that they had previously decided not to give Goku a white-haired transformation due to an upcoming villain's hair colour clashing with it, being suggestive of a white-haired villain appearing in the next arc. And considering we didn't know about Zamasu at the time of this interview, and days after this we'd hear of the leak of the new villain being called Goku Black, it seemed to put the pieces together at the time. Although a few weeks after this, they did show off a poster for the arc that had an image of Goku Black wearing a patara looking over his shoulder featuring Trunks' mind and a time machine in the centre stage, so that fueled the fire even more. This Goku would have had a red aura and would glitch or flicker mid-fight, making it difficult to predict his movements. almost like a corrupted file or a glitching character in a game. He'd be able to turn Super Saiyan, but when he would turn Super Saiyan, his hair would go white. And when he'd speak, it would be like getting an out-of-range reply from a radio or walkie-talkie.
Real nightmare fuel stuff.
But being corrupted, there would have been an excuse to make his urge for battle take over and just slowly become more evil the longer that he's around. Goku would begin destroying everything and Trunks would be unable to stop him. Trunks would be forced to go back in a time machine to recruit everybody from the present's help with this new foe. And this was more or less the type of thing I envisioned when we first heard about the arc. And I don't think this is better or worse than what we got, it's just different. Because I loved that arc, besides the ending. But the idea of a tech-based bad guy with glitchy overtones is something we haven't had yet in Dragon Ball. And so at the time, I thought this would be cool. I also thought that making our own set of Dragon Balls was something very in character for Bulma, especially future Bulma, who didn't have the luxury of relying on Dragon Balls to make every wish come true, the way that present Bulma does. But what do you guys think? Would you have liked this idea? I'm not asking whether you'd have thought it would have been better because this is a very brief synopsis of what would have been the start of the arc. You can't compare that to a full fleshed out Goku Black arc, which did turn out to be very fun. But let me know in the comments section down below whether you'd have liked to have seen this version. So please remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe consider subscribing to the channel for future Dragon Ball content. And hit that bell for notifications when the channel uploads. So, until we meet again, bye! Bag Broly is damaged, and Vegeta fires a bang attack to finish him. Go Vegeta, maybe you'll actually get a main win now. Bag Broly grabs the bang attack and stores it away. What? Oh, because he's part Bag? Oh, that was a twist I didn't see coming. You probably will have done, because I'm likely to have drawn it by now. It wasn't clear to me that he was going to obtain skills of Bag when he merged with the pack. Vegeta is shocked. Goku transforms into a Super Saiyan and blasts Bag Broly. Bag Broly puts Goku's blast away. Vegeta says, that's really annoying. I agree, Vegeta. The clown transforms into a Super Saiyan and gets into a small car. Bag Broly puts the small car away. Goku is angry at Bag Broly for putting the car away. Okay, I'll re-roll it. I'm sorry, I'll re-roll that one. Alright. It progresses like normal for a while, and then suddenly it just takes a left turn. Goku wanting to play with that and getting angry at him, it suddenly went from Dragon Ball to Rugrats. Goku is angry at Bag Broly for putting the car away. Goku fires a Kamehameha at Bag Broly.